After meeting with Afghan President Hamid Karzai in Washington today, President Barack Obama said U.S. forces would shift their mission this spring from leading combat operations to training and advising Afghan forces. He outlined two goals for continuing the U.S. presence in Afghanistan after the scheduled withdrawal of U.S. troops in 2014.
First, training and assisting Afghan forces, and second, targeted counterterrorism missions against al-Qaeda and its affiliates.
Standing beside Obama, President Karzai said the two leaders had agreed on several key issues, including transferring detainees and detention centers to Afghan control and including Taliban leadership in future peace talks. Karzai said immunity for U.S. forces after the scheduled withdrawal in 2014 could be a possibility.
I can go to the Afghan people and argue for immunity for U.S. troops in Afghanistan in a way that Afghan sovereignty will not be compromised, in a way that Afghan law will not be compromised.
But while much of the focus is on the future of U.S. military, the people of Afghanistan continue to face a myriad of problems, from dependence on a war economy to government corruption to the effects of controversial U.S.-led drone strikes and night raids. The number of people driven from their homes and displaced by the fighting also continues to grow and is now approaching 500,000, according to the UN Refugee Agency. For more on this, we're joined by Adam Coombs. He's head of the Asia section at the Norwegian Refugee Council. The group conducted a recent study of Afghans displaced in the country. We're reaching him in Oslo, Norway. Welcome to FSRN.
Yeah, thank you.
First, talk about conditions now for those displaced within Afghanistan, especially during winter weather, and the conditions for those in temporary shelters.
Firstly, the situation for displaced in Afghanistan is dire. Not only are they facing issues in terms of malnutrition, where water also is in short supply, a third of the IDP children are facing a lack of access to education. And also the large majority are unemployed. On top of that, you have a situation where just this weekend it was 15 degrees, it's snowing now, living in conditions that are very, very difficult. In temporary housing, shelters that are inadequate to face the harsh winters of Kabul, living sometimes directly on the snow, children without shoes and so forth. The situation for the IDPs is also not getting better, as often they have difficulties in locally integrating into the urban areas. We find a trend of IDPs or displaced moving more and more to rural centers, into overcrowded slum areas, basically, and finding it very, very difficult to survive.
You note this trend of IDPs, displaced persons, moving into rural areas. What are the specific regions that are hardest hit?
In the Afghanistan context, it is difficult to say, as there are humanitarian needs in the majority of areas of Afghanistan. However, our indications are showing that the south and southeast are especially impacted in terms of humanitarian needs. What makes that also difficult is the international community's access to reach the displaced in these areas due to grave security concerns.
About 3/4 of the people you spoke with said the reason for their displacement was conflict, and many identified the Taliban or anti-government forces as causes of being driven from home. But there were other factors as well, natural disasters. Talk about the causes that have driven people from their homes.
Yes, you're completely correct. I mean, our study is showing that that there is the majority that have been 50% or 76%, excuse me, were showing conflict as a reason, and 50% of these were due to Taliban and other anti-governmental forces. However, the reason for displacement in Afghanistan also is very, very complicated, where you can have a family that is displaced because of conflict, but at the same time, they have no ability to secure their livelihoods in terms of employment. And so it becomes a mixture. You indicated the issue of natural disasters, which absolutely is a problem in Afghanistan, both in terms of earthquakes, as we all know, harsh winters, as I previously mentioned. In addition to that, flooding often is an issue that impacts the displaced to a much higher degree than other populations within Afghanistan.
The situation you're describing may also point to a more permanent change in the country. Your report finds that most of the people who've been displaced say they do not foresee being able to return to their homes. Over 75% plan to settle permanently in their new location. So there might be this big change in population within the country. What challenges does this bring?
Incredible challenges. And we're seeing, as I previously said, a large displacement into urban settings, not only Kabul, but many of the other urban settings around Afghanistan. This large influx on top of a system that is already completely overloaded is a recipe for disaster. If this trend is to continue, you're going to have a very, very major shift from the rural to urban areas in Afghanistan, which will have long-reaching effects.
Well, how about in the immediate future? I mean, the focus of the meeting between Presidents Obama and Karzai, and a lot of the media attention is on this 2014 date, what's going to happen militarily. But you do mention the dire circumstances because of the weather and the winter weather, the cold conditions right now. So what needs to happen right now?
I think right now we need to maintain the humanitarian focus both in the short and medium term, make sure that agencies are in place to be able to respond to the needs that are there on the ground, and maintain the focus that is needed for that to happen. We are very, very afraid that, as we get closer and as many actors want to say, yeah, mission complete, we've done our job and it was a success, the humanitarian questions will be left out.
Adam Coombs is head of the Asia section at the Norwegian Refugee Council. He joined us to discuss the nearly 500,000 people within Afghanistan who have been displaced by war and other factors. Adam Coombs, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.